My name is Ioana Bazavan. I'm a managing director with IECTORY in our security practice. I look after our high-tech and media clients in the California West. I'm here today largely because one of my passions in security is actually developing our people. In consulting, our people are our product. And so we need to have really good people and we need to keep them happy so that they choose to stay with us rather than going other places. And especially for me, when I'm dealing with my high-tech clients who also have very, very smart security people of their own, I need to make sure that my people are able to not only keep up, but add value. So I really enjoy people development. I really enjoy working with my teams to make them better at their own careers. And I wanted to share some of that with you today. Quick show of hands, how many of you are in your first 5 years of your security career? Most, okay, good. 6 to 10, couple. 11 to 15, couple. Okay, good, and I won't ask about anything else. So I would like this to be really interactive if at all possible, so please feel free to interject, ask questions. I'm happy to take them as we go. If I look past you and I don't notice your hand, just say something. Hopefully you can hear me. It's a little distracting in here. I wasn't expecting it to be so loud. But anyway, also I know it's an international audience. As part of my hobby set, I am an avid scuba diver, so I talk a lot with my hands. So at some point you might see me give the okay sign. In scuba, this is the international sign for I'm okay, or this is okay. I know in some cultures this means something very different. I don't mean that. So just to be clear. Anyway, let's talk about this for a second. I've split this presentation up. Not a lot on the slides, just something for you to look at if you don't want to stare at me the whole time. I've split this into 3 general sections. And the first section is really talking about your career trajectory. Oops, wow, this is sensitive. Right? So one of the things that I find, especially with the people that I mentor that are very technical, is they ask the question, well, do I have to go into management? So let me back up for just a second and give a little bit of context on a couple of words I'm going to use. So in consulting, our people are assigned to client projects. And projects can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 years. But on average, they tend to be 4 to 6 months. So what happens is that every year, each individual is getting feedback from 2, 3, 4, 5 projects. So they do have supervisors on each of those projects. They're almost always different supervisors. So we also have this concept of a career counselor. And the job of the career counselor is to kind of consolidate all that feedback and provide career guidance to the individual, and then ultimately represent them in the end of year process to make sure that they're getting the right feedback and also the right compensation. IECTORY is a true meritocracy, so if you do better work, you get better pay, which is a good thing, but you have to have somebody kind of central to manage all of that. So everybody in our company has a career counselor. I am a career counselor to 12 other people, and I have a career counselor myself. So you'll hear me talk about career counselor and you'll hear me talk about my counselees. And that's what that means. So I have a number of counselees who are very technical, and especially in consulting, the typical path is you're more technical when you're more junior and then you go into management. Generally speaking, that does make you more money. However, you can be very well paid as a very strong technician. Really, the answer is if you can do both very well, you're that magical unicorn that we're all looking for. And so a lot of what I'm going to be talking about today is not how you go and get more technical skills, because you all know how to do that. What I want to talk to you about is some things to think about in terms of how to manage your career and how to think about some of the other skills you might need so that you're not that guy in the back room that we just feed once in a while, right? So that we're putting you out and giving you opportunities and helping you grow in your career, because the more value that you add to your company, the more you should expect to get paid. So, she did say that if I turn away, it won't work anymore. The really important thing to think about as you're deciding where you want to be and where you want to go is to regularly reevaluate. And there are a lot of reasons for that. One of my counselees, when I started working with him about 2 years ago, was really concerned, well, do I really, really need to have to start managing, and I don't know if I like that, and I really just want to be technical, and I want to be really good at technical. And the answer was, you know what, you can do that, but try it. He said, I don't think I would like it. And I said, you don't know that, try it. And he waited for a while and he thought about it, and he finally did try it. And our conversations in the past 4 months or so have been around, he was given 2 analysts to supervise. One of his analysts was doing really well, just natural rock star, got everything. And the other analyst was kind of struggling a little bit and was having some challenges. And so our conversations turned to things like, well, how do I help this person, or what do I do about this person because they're not performing well? And we talked about techniques, and he tried them, and that person got better. And he came back and he said, wow, this has been so great. I didn't think I'd like this, but I really love managing people, and it felt so good to have this other person that I helped get better. And they're grateful to me, and that was a really good thing. He still does an incredibly technical job, but he's discovered this new skill set that he really likes to do. It took him a while to grow into that and to be okay with that, and that's okay. Your career is your own story that should be at your own pace, but really think about other things to try. Try doing a little bit of program management. Try supervising others. Even if your passion is around technology and threat hunting or incident response or whatever it might be, try these other things because you'll learn from them. And even if you learn that you really do hate it, it's a good lesson, and it's a good thing to know. The other interesting thing is I had the opportunity to hear Jennifer Akers speak a number of years ago. She's a researcher at Stanford University, and she does a lot of work around happiness. And she did a really interesting study that was very eye-opening to me. She interviewed a number of people ranging in age from 20s to 60s. And she asked about what are the things that they like to do to make them happy, and what are the goals that they're setting for themselves to achieve that happiness. And she learned 3 things from that. The first thing she learned is that within each decade, there were a lot of commonalities. So people in their 20s had similar things that made them happy. People in their 30s had similar things. People in their 40s. But she also learned that what makes people happy in their 20s is different than what makes them happy in their 30s or 40s or 50s. And then the final part of that is she was finding that the reason why, as she started to explore why people as they get older tend to be less happy, is that they weren't reevaluating. So they had set themselves some goals in their 20s about, like getting their career going or buying a house or finding a spouse or whatever those things were. And either they were still working on them in their 30s or 40s, or they had accomplished them and they hadn't reevaluated. So the things that were gonna make them happy now were not the things that they were focused on. And there was this big disconnect. So reevaluating is really important so that you understand, what do I want now? My life has changed, my career aspirations maybe have changed, how much time I have to do work maybe has changed. If you're having kids or your kids are moving out of the house or any of those life things that impact how fast you can move in your career, those things differ all the time. Especially as you get further into your career, when you're early on, you're learning a lot and you feel like you're growing and progressing. As you start getting into 7, 8, 10, 12, 15 years into this career, you have to think and pay attention a little bit harder to really notice the change. It can be really small, subtle things. And you might feel like, I haven't really grown that much in the last year or 2. But then if you really dissect it and really think about, wow, I had that breakthrough 3 months ago and that really cool thing happened. And, I did this piece of work and I didn't think I could do that. And if you really start thinking about your successes and how you've moved along, you'll realize that you've actually grown quite a bit more than you've realized. So really, really important to reevaluate. Oops, wow. I had to put in a card reference, right? We're in Vegas. This is, I think, part of the hardest thing with a career, no matter where you are in your career. And I know I didn't do a good job with this one when it happened to me. We all have challenges. Crappy boss, abusive client, boring work, tedious work, right? There are things that happen in our careers. Not every day is amazing and, great. The real challenge is knowing when to push through that and when to say enough is enough and move on. I've had counselees who were put into really tough situations. One of my counselees recently, actually, he got thrown in with the wolves. Really nasty client, really messed up situation, really hard work. The whole team was working 14-hour days. And there were times when he's like, you know what, maybe I just need to roll off and let somebody else come in and fix this because I don't think I'm doing it. And I kept telling him, nope, you're doing okay. I said, is the leadership on that project saying anything to you? No, they say I'm doing a great job and they feel sorry for me. All right, that means you're good, right? If you were doing something wrong, they would be on you every day. If they're saying, keep going, you're doing okay. He pushed through, we talked through all kinds of scenarios about, how to deal with the client, how to help the morale of the team. And he figured out some stuff, with the financials, and he figured out some negotiations with the client that he could do. And a couple weeks ago, he called me and he said, Ioana, I had this conversation with a client today, and he started yelling at me, and I pushed back, and I figured out how to do that. And he agreed with me, and we have a path to move forward. And he said, I did not think I could ever do that. And he was so proud of himself. And this was after months and months of just, oh my God, this is so hard, and I don't know if I can do it. And he finally had that breakthrough. And it was so worth it to him. And by the way, he wants to be promoted this year. And there's a good chance that because he struggled through that and made that impact, he will get a promotion. All right, so when you have those really hard situations, really try to turn them around. That's when you do your biggest growth, your most growth, and that's when you have the biggest impact, not only to yourself and to your own confidence, but to your supervisors and to your company. Where I had an issue was, I started my career at Accenture 20 years ago. I fell into security by accident, and I've done a bunch of security things along the way. I also left Accenture for about 6 years because I got tired of traveling. And so I went into industry, and my first job at this other company, which shall remain nameless, was really hard. And it taught me a lot, and I got through it, and it took 3.5 years to really turn around. It happened to be an access identity team that was doing operations and managing access for the entire company, and it was a disaster. They offshored it in a bad way, and it was a lot of work. It went from the CIO calling me 3 times a week saying, why isn't this done, to the CIO calling me and saying, can you teach this other team how to have an effective offshore team, right? It felt really good. It was a huge success. 3.5 years in, I handed my job to somebody more junior because I was done. There's nothing left for me to do. And I worked with a lot of the executives there, and they really liked the ideas that I brought and the things that I could do for them. And it was like, yeah, let's do that. We'll talk. Phone never rang. I'd follow up, hey, remember that thing? Yeah, we didn't really have time, we didn't have budget, or we didn't, all these excuses why they couldn't do this. And I just saw so much potential and so much good stuff that I could be doing and so much great work at this company that I liked. It was all right. And kept hoping to make something happen, and nothing did. 2.5 years later, I finally left because I was working less than 15 hours a week and bored out of my skull. Looking back, I shouldn't have waited that long, right? So in that case, I did not read the writing on the wall soon enough. So if you've made the efforts, if you've done everything that you feel is possible and things aren't changing and they're not good, time to move on. Maybe you can find something within the company, maybe it's time to look outside, but you need to really be monitoring and reevaluating and making sure you're thinking about that, because you don't want to stagnate your career because your employer can't do what you need from them. Okay, so really important and it's really hard, where is that line? Have I done enough? I kept asking, well, maybe I need to do this one more thing. Well, maybe just this one more thing. Maybe one more, right? Find a line, stick with it. If the line gets crossed, you're done. And the last thing is, don't overplan the future. And this is another mistake that I've made. I know that ladies in this room, I would point this one out to you because statistically women are more likely to do this than men, although I've seen plenty of men do it too. That whole thing about, I don't know how much longer I want to be here. maybe I want to go do this other thing. For me, it was, do I want to get promoted to managing director? Because that's a really hard promotion. It's a lot of work and it takes a lot of time. And then you get the golden handcuffs, so you kind of have to stick around, right? to make it worth all the hard work. And for me, it was like, yeah, but I've always worked with these really large companies. Maybe I'd like to try my hand at a startup, or maybe I'd like to go be a CISO somewhere, or maybe I'd like to, I don't know, right? Change careers and go back to school and do something completely different. Here I am. Did I even go interview anywhere? Did I even really seriously job search? No, right? But I put my promotion on hold in case I did, right? Another one for the younger women in the room, well, I'm engaged and, my fiance and I are talking and we'd like to have a baby. Great, are you pregnant right now? Because if you're not, that shouldn't be holding you up, right? If you're actively job searching, if you're really pregnant right now or imminently about to be pregnant, pause your career a little bit. If you're not, you are here now. You are in this job, in this company right now. Take advantage of what's offered to you. If that changes 3 months or 6 months or a year from now, deal with it then, because it might not. For me, what that meant was probably 2 years of lower pay when I could have had higher pay, right? So it's, again, everybody's trajectory is different. You're not always going to be go, go, go on your career, but really avoid and think about and evaluate, are you stunting your career for no good reason? Or are you actually doing something worthwhile that merits having your career be where it is right now, right? That whole work-life balance thing, there's not a balance. It's ebb and flow. Sometimes your job is going to be more important. Sometimes the rest of your life is going to be more important, and that's okay. And everybody has a different story. So the other really important thing is don't compare yourself to the person next to you, right? They have a different story. Even if you're doing the same job and you think you have kind of the general same trajectory, everybody has a different story. So it's just really focus on yourself. You're here now. What can you do to benefit yourself in your career right now, where you are? And where's that line? Okay? Any questions? Good so far? All right. Ooh, so part 2, credibility. So this is my quote. I quoted myself. Huh? Yeah, we all have that quote. I think I say this more than anybody though. The reward for good work is more work, which is usually a good thing. Sometimes it really sucks if you're already way overloaded and somebody's like, great, thank you, here's, do this one too. And you're like, no, please. But if you're being asked to do more, that's an implicit, you're doing a great job, please help me again, right? That's where you want to be. You got to learn to say no, we'll talk about that. But wow, this is so sensitive. This whole section about credibility is around how you add value to others so that they notice. Some people call it building your brand. It's really when somebody says, hey, who would be a good person to do this thing, your name comes up. Because if your name isn't coming up, it's harder to get those better roles. It's harder to get that visibility, which then leads to salary increases, promotions, bigger and better things, right? In whatever capacity. So first thing, treat everyone as your customer and make them look good. Whether it's your boss or your teammate or your subordinates even. Make sure that you're helping them be successful. Sometimes it's just a little sparkly purple eyeshadow. Sometimes it's lipstick for the pig. Right? But, you got to make them look good. It's especially if it's your boss, making them look bad is generally not good for your career. I think we all know that, but we all slip up sometimes. It's funny, this works in life too. I have a colleague who's also managing director who has a toddler. And she said right out, she's like, yeah, I treat my child like my client. It's like, and it works for her, she's a great mom. So make sure that you are thinking about, what is important to that person? How can you add value to that person? Is it helping them understand if it's a subordinate? If it's helping them be successful getting the work done on time so that they can report to their supervisor if it's your boss, right? What is going to make them look good? And make sure that you're understanding that, okay? How many of you supervise people? Any of you? Some of you, okay, good. So, some of you are in the middle, some of you don't supervise yet, but up and down and horizontally, make sure that you're making other people look good, because then that's also then you're going to get that credit. And hey, I want to work with Tara because she really helped me. Thank you, Tara, for being my example, right? And I'm going to ask her to help me next time too because she made me look good. And again, you get that visibility, your name gets out there, and that starts to go forward. This one is really important, and we hear this all the time, right? Who hasn't told you, better listening skills? Listen, listen, listen. Yeah, okay, great. Really listen to understand. And I see this a lot, especially, technical people tend to be really smart people. And you think you know the answer, and you so much want to tell them the answer. And that might not be the question that they're asking. Especially when you're talking to somebody who's not a security person, who doesn't understand the fundamentals of security. They might be using the wrong words. So if you're keying off the words and you go to answer or you finish their sentence because you think you know what they're going to say, and they're actually using the wrong words and they think they're using the right words, you really need to kind of think about what are they trying to say to me. Also, thinking a little bit about what they're not saying and how that might adjust your response. For those of you who are in positions of, so how many of you are like incident responders, threat hunter type roles in here? Some of you, risk assessor type, some of you, okay? So if you're a risk assessor type, they're probably a little bit scared of you, right? They're probably worried that they're gonna fail, right? So what are their concerns? They're worried about you making them look bad in some way, right? So how do you help them alleviate that so that they're being honest with you? If you're threat hunting or an incident responder, somebody's sky is falling, right? Somebody's business is about to have bad things happen. They're scared of something. What is that? And how do you help them with that? Right, so really listening to understand what their problem is. Or, are they asking you the completely wrong thing because they don't know any better? So I like to use help me understand. It's very non-threatening. Right? Help me understand, I sense that you're really concerned about this. Help me understand that. Why is that? What's going on? Be a little bit of a shrink. That goes a long way in security, especially with the non-security people. Say yes. Take a risk. Be careful with risks. They should be good risks. They shouldn't be outright risks, right? We all know that. We're security people. We're paranoid. We're risk averse, but do take some risks. And in terms of saying yes, it can be a yes but. The problem with saying no is that people stop asking. They ask once, you say no. They ask a second time, you say no. There might not be a third time. And then when you go and ask and say, hey, I'd like to participate in some way, you might not be first on their list because you said no, right? So maybe say yes. And it might be, yeah, I'd love to help. I'm working on this thing right now, give me an hour. Or I can help you tomorrow morning, but I need to get this thing done by the end of the day today. Or if it's your boss, you might say, yeah, I'd love to help with that, but I've got these 3 other things. Can you help me prioritize them? Sometimes it's, I would love to help, but you know what? I'm leaving for vacation tomorrow. I've copied John. John knows how to do this too, and I've talked to him already, and he has some bandwidth. He's going to help you, and I'll check back in when I'm back, and I'll jump in and help. Really, you said no in that case. But you hooked them up with the right person, you got the right person involved, and it's not just go talk to John. You go talk to John. Copy them on the email. Get that connection going, right? Take that small step, because then that makes you look like you said yes, right? And even if it sounds like something you don't necessarily want to do, I don't know if I know how, I don't know if I like that work, say yes, right? But also be honest, right? Yeah, sure, I'd love to do that. Be confident about it. But you know what? I've never actually done that exact thing. Is there someone I can talk to? I'm pretty sure I know what to do, but is there someone I can talk to just verify that I'm on the right track and make sure that I haven't overlooked anything, right? The other thing with being confident but honest is in your responses. Especially if you're in a role of response or threat hunting or things like that, or architecture, or you're in consulting and you're being asked as an expert to give an answer. Do you really know the answer? Maybe, maybe not, right? I don't know is not a great answer. Doesn't breed confidence, right? You'd be surprised how much you know when you start talking. I've been amazed, completely amazed at what's come out of my mouth sometimes, right? Say, typically in this situation, the answer is this. In this particular situation, I'm not sure of this and this. Let me go check that and confirm for you. Underlying, you just said, yeah, I don't really know the answer, but you gave somebody an intelligent response that they can do something with and manage in some way. And you didn't say, I don't know, right? And you were honest, right? So don't ever give an answer. If you don't know, if you totally don't know, say, I don't know, right? If it's a binary, hey, did we get this report? I don't know, let me go check, right? But if it's like a conversational thing, try to come up with something useful. Ugh. All right, we're gonna stop doing this. I'm gonna stand here and we're gonna use this. Keep calm. People get scared of security, people get scared of auditors, their sky is falling because breaches are happening or something weird happened. If you can be that confident rock where you're getting it done and you're giving them the answers and you make them feel comfortable, you make them feel like you have it and you're getting it, that's gonna go a long way, and that's who they're gonna wanna work with in the future. The other part of this is if you're a supervisor, or when you become a supervisor, or even among your teammates, yelling has no business in the workplace anymore. If you're finding that you're yelling a lot or other people are yelling at you, unpack that. Try to figure out what's going on. Because there are ways that, professional environment kind of thing, right? You shouldn't be just yelling at each other. What are the underlying problems? Some of it can be cultural. I've seen especially people who have been in the workplace longer, because that used to be a thing, right? Our parents did it, right? Yell at you to get you to do the right thing. That's not very motivating, right? It's fear-based. Nobody likes that. But really spend time thinking about how do you improve those relationships, especially if it's with your boss, right? Where's the line? But especially when you're in a service capacity to your clients or to your customers, when they're feeling freaked out, don't fuel that. Do everything you can to help them feel calm and emote that calm to them, because that's going to help them feel like you're the right person to be helping them. This is probably my favorite ever quote from Maya Angelou. Do your best, and when you know better, do better. Right? It's kind of like, you read it and you're like, duh. But it's really profound too, right? In our industry, things change every day. And that's why some of these skills are so important. Whatever you know technically, whatever you're doing today is going to be obsolete in 6 months, right? So you have to be adjusting what you're doing. You have to be adjusting how you're doing it. You have to be adjusting who you're doing it with so that you're continuing to be relevant and keeping up with our industry so that you're doing well in your career. Some of that might be new techniques, some of that might be processes, some of that might be recognizing, hey, what we're doing right now is broken, it's taking too much time, it's taking too much effort, how do we fix that? Is it a training issue? Is it a process issue? Can we automate something technically? Think about that, because those small things really add up over time. All right, questions there? Okay. The last part of this is ownership. Your career is yours. You own it. You need to drive it. Not your boss, not your company, you. And this is probably the most important part. When I have my counselees, when I get a new counselee, I tell them, you need to schedule time with me. And I tell them every 2 weeks, half hour, put it on the calendar. I don't schedule that for them. I'll remind them, hey, it's been 3 weeks, haven't seen anything on the calendar from you. Oh, yeah, I'll get that, right? It's your career. You need to be scheduling time with people. You need to be managing your career. If that's booking an hour a month on your calendar to give you time to reflect on what's going well and what's not and where you need to improve, it's absolutely meeting with your supervisor on a regular basis. If you've waited until annual review time to find out that you've been doing something wrong all year, that's a big problem, right? It's something that you need to be seeking feedback regularly. So let's talk about managing your career. Especially in consulting, the most critical skill you can have is learning to solve poorly defined problems. And I would say that this is true in industry as well. You don't know what's next. It changes all the time. Maybe you know how to do it, maybe you don't. What's your process for figuring it out? I will take somebody who is eager and reliable and able to go figure it out over someone who's rigid and stronger technically any day. I've done that many times. I know a lot of my peers have done that too. Unless it's just that one thing with that one person that really has that skill and you tolerate whatever it is that they put out, it's very rare. I'd rather you know how to figure something out and go figure it out and be flexible and roll with it and do what's needed than be somebody in your cave who maybe knows the answer, okay? So figure this out. What is your process? If you don't know how to do something, what is your process for going and learning? And the answer shouldn't be, by the way, I go ask somebody, right? How do you do your own research? Unless somebody is Google, okay, that's a good start, right? But how do you do your research? How do you go down the path of figuring it out, right? Find a sponsor. So we all know about mentors. I think not everybody knows about sponsors. So mentor is a person that you can go and ask for advice, talk things through, ask for help, ask for feedback. That's great. A sponsor you can do that with as well, but a sponsor is in a position to actually do something for you on your behalf. So it might be your supervisor, it might not be your supervisor, but it's somebody who can connect you to somebody. It's somebody who can put in a good word for you in promotion, or somebody who has influence on the promotion process, right? Somebody who can open a door for you in some way. I think most of us, if we think about it, probably have a mentor. But if you think about it, do you really have a sponsor? If you don't, you should probably think about getting one. And it's not easy, right? Finding somebody, getting the time from them, there are a lot of factors here, but this one's really, really important. Ask for help and feedback. And this goes in many different directions. So we already talked about, if you're doing something wrong for a long time and you haven't asked for feedback and you don't get that feedback, that could be pretty damaging, right? We all have that thing where, somebody does something, it really bothers us and it's just the one time, and then they keep doing that thing, and then you kind of hit that line, and then you can't stand them anymore and you don't even want to see them anymore and you don't want to work with them. Right? Have you accidentally gotten to that line with somebody because you didn't know? Right? If you're asking for feedback, you know. It's also a lot easier to fix things when they're small than when they get big. Asking for help if you're a supervisor is also a really powerful thing. I communicate with my career counselor by text a lot. And if I look at our conversations, at least half of them start with, I need help. And sometimes it's me saying that to him, sometimes it's him saying it to me. When you ask people you're working with, whether it's your teammates or your supervisors, or especially people who are working for you, when you ask them for help, you are empowering them. You're giving them ownership, and you're giving them confidence. You're giving them an opportunity to do so. Everybody likes to help. You're giving them that opportunity. That makes them feel good. That makes them feel like they're adding value. And sometimes, maybe you don't really need that much help, but you ask for it because it's going to help somebody else, right? But asking for help and feedback is really important at all levels. And of course, giving help. Offering help is really important too. But, like they say on the airplane, put your mask on first. Where I've seen people really, really fail in bad ways, and especially in consulting, we'll staff people on a project and say, okay, here's your scope, here's what you need to do, here are the deliverables you need to get done. And they'll come back and say, okay, did you get your deliverable done? No. Well, why not? Well, because I found all this other stuff and this is wrong and this is not the right thing and they're not thinking about it this way and they didn't do this. Okay, but that's not your scope. Great that you identified all that stuff. Totally agree that that's a problem. But right now you need to be doing this. Do this first. Get it done right. Put your mask on first. Make sure you're breathing. And then offer help. Offer help to your teammates that might be overloaded. Bring up observations to your supervisor and say, hey, I noticed these things. Can I work on some of this? Right? Unless one of these things is materially impacting your immediate scope, where you have to do this before this can reasonably get done. Or you're going to waste a whole ton of time doing this without this. Right? That's a different conversation. But generally speaking, do your own work first. Get it done. Build that credibility that you've delivered on time, that what you're doing is accurate, it's good quality, it's what was asked for, it's maybe a little bit more, right? And then seek to expand your scope. Because if you seek to expand your scope before you've proven yourself, people are going to be like, you're wasting time, what are you doing? Okay? Give the gift of feedback. And sometimes I say that very tongue-in-cheek when somebody has done something really not pleasing. But this goes along with, just like you need to ask for feedback, you need to be giving feedback to others. People don't read people's minds. We all think we do. We all would like to, but we don't. And this causes a lot of problems. I've seen a situation multiple times where I've been talking to people where they'll tell me, well, but they should have known that because they're this level. On what basis? Right? If you haven't provided the person, if somebody does something wrong, they deserve to be told politely and constructively what they did wrong and how they can fix it, right? Maybe they made a mistake. Maybe they misunderstood the assignment. Maybe somebody thought that they should know how to do that and they'd actually never done it before. That happens a lot, a surprising amount. They're not going to learn if you don't tell them. They're not going to know that they're rubbing you the wrong way or that they did it incorrectly unless you tell them. And wow, you really sucked at that is not a good way to give feedback, right? Unless you have a really long relationship. Really think about the words that you use. Practice it with somebody else first if it's really tough feedback. And really focus on how do you give the feedback about the thing without making it personal or spending time on, the individual. Bless you. So this is really important, and this is important not just supervisor to subordinate, but it's important upwards too, right? Hey, boss, I am really trying to do this thing. I need you to help me. I need you to give me this feedback. You're asking for it, but you're setting some expectations with them. Pay it forward is working your way out of your job. The best way to get a bigger, better job is to get your current job done, right? And I spend a lot of time with my more senior counselees on this one. I have one guy who's absolutely amazing at what he does. He's our lead cloud security architect, and everybody wants him. And he works his butt off. He works way too many hours a day, and we're always worried about him burning out. And so with him, I'm constantly saying, what are you pushing down to the people on your team? Well, but they don't know how to do it as well as I do. How did you learn? We all learned at some point, We all started with nothing. So sure, you do it better. You've been doing it for 5 years. They've been doing it for 1. But they're not going to get to being as good as you are ever if you keep doing it. And you're not going to get to do new things if you're still doing that, right? The other thing I hear is, yeah, but I don't have time. Okay, so you don't have time to spend 3 hours teaching someone, but you have time to spend an hour every week for the rest of your life doing it yourself, right? Make the time. It's going to benefit that person. They're going to have gratitude and good things to say about you, which also gets around. And then you give them work that's interesting to them, that's maybe not interesting to you anymore, and that benefits everybody. And you spread the wealth. Oh, and it looks like I was actually missing one thing. The other thing I wanted to say was make sure you're setting expectations. And that goes with everybody. The worst thing that can happen in security is you think I'm doing it, I think you're doing it, and it falls to the floor between us, right? That's the absolute worst thing that can happen in security. If you're setting the expectations with your supervisor, what do you expect of me? What do you need me to do? And understanding how to communicate that value. Are you spending time talking to somebody in words that they don't understand, right? Are you, as that person is having their sky falling, a business VP or whatever, finance person, are you telling them about a SQL injection that you just found? And they have no idea what that means, right? Are you telling an executive that, hey, last month we had 87,000 vulnerabilities and now we only have 56,000, right? And they're like, okay, yeah, and? Part of really being better at the technical work that we do is helping the non-technical people, our stakeholders, those business VPs, those executives, help them understand in their world what that means, right? What does it mean that you've reduced by 30 some odd thousand vulnerabilities? Well, they were the highest risk vulnerabilities. They had these potential impacts on these systems, and now they don't have that anymore, right? Help them understand in their own terms. You could have lost money. We could have, something with that vulnerability, a hacker could have shut down your e-commerce site using those types of simple terms, stealing money, shutting down websites, impacting the business in some way, not SQL injections or number of vulnerabilities or, they don't care about that. It's really easy to get stuck in that because that's what we live in, but they don't care about that. Helping them understand in their words what is the value of the job that you do is going to make you somebody that they want to work with. And that's going to get you out of that back room as well. So a few things to think about. Hopefully that was helpful. Happy to take any other questions you have. But yeah, please reevaluate. Please think about where you want to be. Please think about the people that you work with and how to enable them to be better. And that's going to really propel you forward. And good luck. Thank you.